Hello everyone, welcome to the Green Effect podcast. This is episode number 21, and I've got some exciting news for you. In the next two future episodes, I've got both Dave Jaworsky, Mayor for the City of Waterloo, and Berry Vrbanovic, Mayor for the City of Kitchener, coming on my podcast. So I have reached the big time. We've had presidents, and now we got mayors showing up. They're going to be on at separate times because I really think there are some different issues for both cities. Some are common, some are different. But this episode number 21, is all about prepping to have them on. So I've got a bunch of ideas. I've reached out to some community leaders. I've got some great audio clips from them. But we're going to talk this episode about what we're going to ask Dave and Barry when they come on the show. And once this episode is released, I want to hear from you as well. Email me. Post on the different social media you're listening to this on. Let me know what you want to ask Dave Jaworsky and Berry Vrbanovic, the two mayors, City of Kitchener, City of Waterloo. Of note, if you are watching on YouTube, we don't have video for this episode, so we have all audio, but you're just going to be looking at the title artwork. Without further ado, let's get started with episode number 21.
Welcome to the Green Effect Podcast. Finance, life, business, and everything in between. And now, your host, Stephen Green.
Welcome again, everyone, to the Green Effect Podcast, episode 21. Here we go. So this one is just me. I don't have any live guests for this one. So as I mentioned, we do have the mayor of the City of Waterloo, Dave Jaworsky, coming on, and Berry Vrbanovic, Mayor, City of Kitchener. They're going to come on in the next two episodes. Dave's first, and then we're going to have Barry on. Separate times, I think a lot of separate issues for both cities, and I thought it would be great. It's great timing to have them on and really dig into some of this. So first I want to talk about for this episode, first part is going to be common items for both cities. Second part, just Waterloo. Third part, just City of Kitchener. So let's get started. Common issues with both cities. So the first thing I want to talk to them about is obviously something that's top of mind, housing. It just isn't affordable anymore. And we often talk about paying the Waterloo tax. So to live in Waterloo, taxes are a little bit higher. But I want to know from both of these mayors, what's their take on this? Are they okay with this? We're building all these new homes, and the sprawl is happening, and it's great. We're growing, no doubt about it. However, it's just really expensive. Personally, I've got two kids, 16 and 18. I don't have a clue how they're going to afford anything when it's time for them to buy a home. So, I really want to understand from them what their take is on the affordability issue for new housing. And I should say not just new housing like new construction, but the resale market. We still have constant homes going to multiple offers. How do they feel about this? Again, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, especially for the mayors of the respective city. They want to see their city grow, but at what expense? So what are we doing to make this more affordable? In particular, Dave Jaworsky actually sits on the Waterloo Region Housing Master Plan Steering Committee. I repeat, Waterloo Region Housing Master Plan Steering Committee. I'm going to ask him more about that. I don't know a lot about it. I did a Google search, couldn't find too much, but I got to think that has to do with what is happening in the Waterloo region and basically the planning around where the housing is going. So we're going to definitely talk about that. As you know, I did reach out to some community leaders, and one of them I reached out to is Brian Santos. So not only is he a real estate agent, but he's also the president of the Kitchener-Waterloo Association of Realtors. He brought up a great question, and I'm going to just play the clip right now. And not only does he ask about affordability, but he asks a really good question at the end. So here's Brian Santos.
I was born here in Kitchener-Waterloo, so I've been here all my life, and I've seen prices climb. And for me, it seems like a lot of money because I've always lived here. But for others, it seems like we're a relative bargain. I'm curious to see what each respective mayor, what their opinion is on affordability and what that word means to them.
So the key thing there is, what does affordability mean to them? And I love the way that question was worded because it means something different for everybody. So what is, quote, affordability to the mayors? In both cities, there are more and more brand new homes. So I want to understand from them what they think that means, how they see that going. Are we actually seeing the residents of their respective city moving into those brand new homes, or are these people that are coming in from elsewhere? What does that mean to them and their respective cities? I really want a firm understanding of that. Next common topic for both cities, the Ontario government. So they're looking to reduce the subsidy for permits in Ontario. So what you may not know about me, I'm also a club director. I do coach and direct Ignite Volleyball Club here in Kitchener, Waterloo. It is a youth sports group, and we've been very, very fortunate to have grant money coming from the Ontario government to allow the cities and the school boards here in KW to subsidize the permits for youth sports. Every indication is that's going away. So I need to understand from both the mayors, what is their concern about this? Where do they see things going? Ideally, if sports clubs cannot afford to run certain programs, that's going to put kids right into the mall. That's going to put them in situations where maybe parents can't afford it. I know our club, we have to look at increasing fees to offset the cost of permits. It's not a good place to be. So where do they see that going in the grand scheme of things for youth in their area? I can say that I'm of the age, I grew up with work to rule. So I was in school when teachers decided to go work to rule, which means they didn't offer extracurricular activities. And it's not a great place to be. I'm not saying that's happening here, but if clubs have to increase fees, to be able to offer these programs, that's going to put people in a really bad situation. So I want to know what they're doing to help that and make sure our kids have somewhere to play. Number 3 for the two mayors, again, still on common issues for both cities. The regional council review. So if you haven't heard, there is a review committee meeting to figure out if there is an option for amalgamation of, if not the cities, but at least some of the services. Where is that? How do they feel about it? Former Waterloo Region Chairperson Ken Sealing, who was obviously in that role for many, many years, understands the ins and outs, and he's the chairperson. How do they see this going? Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Will taxes go up? Will taxes come down? These are things we have to find out. Where do they just see this going so far? Here's another great question from Brian, and it's not something that I had thought about, but it was definitely on top of his mind. Here's Brian.
In Toronto, they have municipal land transfer tax. Like my brother's purchased there, and he's gone through that. And I was like, it adds quite a bit to the home buying experience in terms of cost. I'm wondering what their thought is on municipal land transfer tax, and if we will ever see it in Kitchener and in Waterloo.
Could you imagine having a land transfer tax on top of all the other things first-time home buyers in our area have to worry about? And again, I come back to my 16 and 18-year-old kids. I know that money will be tight for them. So we got to find out, is this something that's even on the table right now? Brian shared with me that Berry has definitely spoke out against it. So let's find out what their take is on land transfer tax. So let's get started with City of Waterloo, Dave Jaworsky. Let's talk about some specific things for the City of Waterloo. I had the privilege of chatting with Tracy Van Kalsbeek, and she's the executive director of the UpTown Waterloo BIA. So I asked her and a few other people, but I did ask, what questions do you have for the respective mayor in your area? So here is the brief conversation with Tracy.
moving forward with UpTown and all of the development and the changes that are happening, I get to thinking about affordability. Affordability for our businesses as time moves on, affordability of doing business in UpTown Waterloo, and also affordability around housing. And so I guess those would be my two top questions to the mayor. What can we do to make sure that UpTown, as it's growing and evolving, still remains affordable?
Now, are we talking about affordability for people purchasing homes or renting homes, or both?
I would say both. Both costs are increasing. Also, the cost of properties in UpTown in general, like when it comes to businesses, those are increasing too, because everything is changing and evolving. We've got the new LRT that's going to be here shortly, and that's impacted the cost of properties in UpTown. A lot of them have been reassessed by MCAP, and the prices are going up. And so, again, back to my affordability question of how can we make sure that UpTown still remains affordable.
Okay, and so you are seeing that, because I know with the LRT come in, and of course, I am in real estate, and I know we have a lot of investors that want to purchase rental properties around the LRT. That's great for tenants. So you are seeing already, I mean, they're running on a demo basis, but you're seeing property values increase just because of that LRT coming and it's in the ground. You've seen that already.
Yeah, we're starting to see all of that the properties are increasing in what they're worth. And so then that does get passed on to the business owners if they don't own the property, right?
So there you have it. We've got Tracy talking about affordability. And what's interesting in there is that we've already seen MPAC, who is the organization that handles property tax assessment values in Ontario. They've already reassessed many of the properties. So we're seeing that happen. That is going to impact affordability, right? And it's amazing. It's incredible. We've got the LRT coming, but already values have gone up. Already prices are going up. And, as much as it's great it's here, if the rent goes up even more, those people won't be able to rent anything anyway to even take the LRT. So how is this all going to work? And Tracy also talked a little bit about businesses, for example. So, most owners of the property are going to pass on the increased expenses to the individuals who are leasing from them or renting. So that's going to now drive up everything as well. So really have to have a good conversation around how this is all going to look going forward to, the UpTown corridor. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about relative to UpTown Waterloo is this construction again. So my wife and I were out walking one day, and we were in the UpTown area, and we've got King Street closed between, I believe it's Bridgeport and up to just south of Laurier. And that is not good for business at all. So when is this construction in UpTown Waterloo going to stop? And obviously you want to be making the improvement. So I'm not saying stop improving, but it seems that the road is dug up, then it's fixed, then it's dug up again, then it's fixed. So I can't help but imagine the businesses in UpTown Waterloo are really struggling right now to really make things happen. Next question for Mayor of Waterloo, Dave Jaworsky, is a tough one around student housing, licensing, and student condos. So I did source out some questions from real estate investors who are in Waterloo, and real estate accountants and lawyers and people who deal with many investors, and pose the same question around what would you ask the mayors of the respective cities. And without exception, the one city in particular that was popular to direct questions to was Waterloo and the student housing licensing issue. Recently, the City of Waterloo Council, I believe it was the end of 2018, did vote to continue with the student licensing program. and investors were just simply outraged. From what I understand, I was not there, but from what I understand, council was just simply not listening, and there was a lot of input given around the understanding that there's actual duplication in provincial standards. So why does Waterloo have this student licensing program? On one side, though, I can appreciate it in the sense that we are dealing with a vulnerable sector. I get it. You know, they're young. I'm sure they're over 18, which makes them adults, but they are young kids. But on the flip side, is it too much? I know investors are not happy. They don't like investing here because of that reason. And on top of that as well, I know that when I do talk to some clients, when they are looking at investing, they don't even bother looking at Waterloo, period, because there's so much restriction on duplexing properties or putting in a granny suite and making it legal, etc. So a lot of questions to ask around what's happening with rental properties in Waterloo, licensing, student condos. You know, we have student condo row going down King Street right now from roughly Columbia down to about University. What happens if the vacancy rate goes up because students can't afford these luxury condos because landlords are increasing rent because they have to be able to afford all the other expenses that come with these student rentals? So there's a domino effect that could happen, and I really want to understand what his thoughts are around, you know, student licensing, rental properties in general in Waterloo. Finally, for Dave, I do want to ask him about pot shops. So he has been vocal that he's a supporter of them. Are we going to see them in Waterloo? Will they be as common as a Tim Hortons? Does he see this as something that could truly contribute to the economy? Because as I've said, he has been vocal about it. He's okay with it. How does he see this impacting his community? What about, I hate to bring this up, but what about property values relative to a beautiful residential area, and then you, beside the 7-Eleven and the Little Caesars, a pot shop goes in? What happens? How does he see things unfolding? So those are the big things I want to ask Dave Jaworsky, Mayor, City of Waterloo. And again, I want you to reach out, let me know, what am I missing? What else do we have to ask him? And chat more about it. Next up is Berry Vrbanovic, Mayor for the City of Kitchener. It's where I personally live, so I've got a bit of a vested interest here. Anyway, first thing to ask him is something that I didn't even know was an issue. I was able to chat with Jerry Vander Eyken, who is a home inspector, who I've had on my show before. And here's Jerry's question for Berry about new housing developments in Kitchener.
So, question for our mayors. Parking on boulevards, there is none. On all new developments, can something be done within the city mandate that they allow boulevard parking? Right now, I can't park my vehicle when I go to do inspections. I'm carrying my ladder and all my equipment for 2-3 blocks because they don't have any spaces out front.
Are there particular spots of the city that you run into with that?
It's any new subdivision. They are not allowing a lot of boulevard parking out front because they want the builders to maximize their profits. I get it, but at the same time, I as a home buyer will never buy in a new development of Kitchener Waterloo because I have company come over and I'm not going to make them walk 2-3 blocks to find a parking space. Yeah. So they're going to lose me as a client.
And especially if it's single family homes, right? They're going to want to have family over, friends over, stuff like that.
Exactly. Go drive through a new subdivision. There's nowhere to park your vehicle out front.
So that's Jerry Vander Eyken, home inspector, and we definitely want to get some more information on that. Why is that? What's the reason? And find out if there's something on the table possibly to have a look at it. Next topic. Let's talk about student housing. So almost like the reverse of Waterloo, City of Kitchener does not have a licensing bylaw for student rentals. They have no licensing bylaw at all. So Is this something that might be coming down the pipe? I know there are a great number of investors purchasing around Conestoga College in Kitchener, and these homes are student accommodations. They are single-family homes for the most part. Does he see any changes coming to this? A lot of the investors are now coming down to Kitchener to do this because it is a little more investor-friendly. Or is this just okay the way it's going right now? I don't know if I know the right answer here. And I'd really want to look to Barry to find out what he's feeling, what he's hearing. Are we going to go the way of Waterloo? And that's one thing I'd really want to understand from Barry. This next topic is a little bit tricky. So, safe consumption sites. It's been in the news a lot lately, and what I notice is many of the social programs in general, and I'd really look to Barry to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe most of our social programs are in Kitchener. And, I used to be a very big part of the downtown Kitchener as a manager at a local bank there. We won't talk about which one, but I was definitely a manager there. And I know most of the social programs are in Kitchener, and I want to understand from Barry, is this something that he feels is necessarily a good idea? I think social programs definitely have their place, but it seems that most of them are in Kitchener. Is there a thought to possibly spread that out a little bit so that the other cities that obviously border us can assist with some of these, as an example, safe consumption site, and just the other different programs that are out there? Again, a lot of them are in Kitchener. Is there any thought to spreading that out and possibly having, maybe a safe consumption site in UpTown Waterloo or in Waterloo in general, to make sure that everyone has access, proper access for that matter? So that's what I have planned to chat with Barry and Dave about when they do come on my show. The one thing I'm going to end with here is a great question I got from Brian Santos again, and it's more of a fun one, but it also might, reflect a little bit on how the mayors see their city and how they see it going forward. So here's Brian's question that I'll be asking both the mayors.
I would like to ask if the mayors could picture themselves as a realtor. Why their city? What's their pitch? I'm always keen from their perspective what they are most proud of their city, though. Because I think Kitchener and Waterloo both have some pretty awesome things, but I'm interested to see what they think makes us stand out from other cities.
What a fantastic question. And I'm excited to ask that of both the mayors because I think, like I said, I think that very much will reflect on how they see the city, how they see it moving forward. Just a really fun question. So there you have it. That's a wrap for this podcast, episode number 21, all about questions I'm going to ask the mayor. If you never hear another podcast from me again, it's because the interviews did not go well. I doubt that's the case, but just thought I would bring that up. So if you do hear from me again, and hopefully when these episodes get released, then things went okay. Other than that, if you have anything you would love me to talk to the mayors about, ask questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can get me on social media. Both my Facebook and Twitter handle, RBC Stephen Green, and feel free to message me, and I will definitely try to ask them when they're on the show. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time.
Thank you for listening to the Green Effect Podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Google Play so you catch the next episode. And don't forget to leave a review. Much appreciated.